We'll begin tonight as we do our Monday meetings. Please stand, everybody. We're going to have our Patriot song will be led by T.O. Craigwall. Our Pledge of Allegiance to the Great Nation by Ronnie Kelly. Prayer will be led tonight by Daniel Sampson, followed by our Kiwanis defining statement, which is printed in your program that I'd love you to read with us. T.O.
On the back of your program, you find down at the bottom the first and third verse of America Beautiful. We think it's an appropriate song to sing because that third verse in particular reminds us that our forefathers put our country in front of themselves. And that philosophy carried throughout the years. Many examples, the greatest being the greatest generation during World War II. But there's another thought that I wanted to share with you as we sing this song, and that is the fact that we have a country, Ukraine. The Ukrainian people display this same putting country in front of self. As we sing the song and we think of our forefathers, let's also think about the Ukraine people. Shall we sing?
Oh, beautiful for spacious sky, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesty, above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for spirit fruit in liberating strife, who more than self their country love, and nursing more than life. America, America, God shall thy glory find, till all success be nobleness, and every gain be mine. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for every individual here, and their commitment and service of their time to come to this wonderful event. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the Kiwanis organization and just their commitment and dedication to serving our children in this community, both here locally and across the globe. Father, we pray for Ukraine. Please be with the men, the women, and the children over there. Just wrap your love and arms around them, and may they feel your peace. Father, we thank you for this food. Please bless it. Help to nourish us and strengthen us. Watch us and keep us safe, and let us always do your will and not ours. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please read with us. Kiwanis is a global organization of volunteers dedicated to improving the world, one child and one community at a time. Thank you. You may be seated. Well, our Master of Ceremonies will make some introductions and share a bit about how proceeds from tonight will be distributed. Our MC for the evening is our very own John Bryan. John has been, John has been in the Kiwanis Club of Lebanon for 39 years. He served in all the local offices, including club president and as lieutenant governor of Kentucky-Tennessee District. John is employed by THW Insurance Services. We're so glad to have him. So, John, now here he is.
Thank you, Veronica, I think. Welcome to the first ever Kiwanis Club of Lebanon Celebrity Roast. And it is so great to see this crowd. And I'm so excited about the event. Susie has done wonders putting this thing together. Our Kiwanians together as a team, we have pulled this thing off. And our sponsors, our headline sponsors, thank you so much. And I want at this time to give yourself a round of applause. We're excited about this evening and looking forward to many more laughs as the evening goes on. But we're also excited about continuing this tradition that's been around for some 32 years ago. It was started. And one of our founding members of the Kiwanis Club, the late, great George Harding, was part of that first roast. And he was roasted himself. And I'm glad that video cameras weren't around back then, because the way I remember it, it was pretty ugly. That was George. And Jim Harding is here with us tonight, his son, one of his sons, and he's been a member of the Kiwanis Club for years, and Jim's here with us tonight carrying on that Harding tradition. We're not going to let Jim speak, but Jim, where are you at? I want to stand up to recognize Jim. Thank you to you and your family and your service to Kiwanis. For years, the roast was the Lebanon-Wilson County Library roast. And I made a phone call to my dear friend Jim Mills several months ago when I heard that the board had chosen not to continue the event on. And I asked permission, basically, could Kiwanis take this? And he got back with me, and obviously we're here tonight. So if you are part of the Friends of the Library, and I know Alicia is here tonight, please stand. Former roasters or roastees and honorees, if you've been roasted in this event, Friends of the Lebanon-Wilson County Library Board, please stand to be recognized at this time. All these people have been a part some way, one way or the other, and we appreciate us continuing this great tradition. We're always excited and honored to have our elected officials on hand for an event like this. I've noticed we have the mayor, our sheriff, some judges are here. If you're an elected official, please stand and be recognized at this time. Thank you for your service to our community. Last but not least, Kiwanians. We've got 38 members in the club right now. We've got 31 members here tonight. My heart was so warm. We had a picture out front. We had all of the Kiwanians here tonight. What bothered me about, we had 31 here, but only 12 paid to get in. So I've got to figure that out between now and the next billing quarter. So Kiwanians, if you're here tonight, please stand to be recognized. These are the folks. The people on the ground, ladies and gentlemen. An event like this cannot be pulled off without the team. And the team, through ticket sales, sponsorships, it's made a big difference. I'd like to recognize our sponsors for this evening. Our presenting sponsor, Chris Jones, Middle Tennessee Electric. Have a table right down here front. Chris, thank you so much. Stone Bank, our catering sponsor, right here in the middle. Patriot sponsor, First Freedom Bank, Wilson Bank and Trust. Wilson Bank's over here. First Freedom's over here. Table sponsors, City of Lebanon, Cumberland University, Athletic Department, Ligon and Bobo Funeral Home, Pinnacle Bank, Shenandoah Mills, THW Insurance Services, LLC, Wilson County Automotive, Friends of Kiwanis, Ed and Brenda Callis, Jim Hardy, Rick Smith, Jake Claiborne's Bakery, the Smith Family Bakery and Cafe, Farm Bureau Insurance, West Dugan Office. Special thanks goes out to Creative Graphics. They printed our tickets and our programs for us. Xavier Smith and Josh Kelly doing some photography for us tonight. Tick Bryan on the video and sound. Ann Donald for the artwork. She's done the artwork for years and has continued to do the artwork for the roast. We thank Ann for the artwork for Dr. Stumb. And Habitat for Humanity and All About Holidays. So let's hear it for all our sponsors this evening. I told Paul when Susie and I met with him several months ago and asked him to mark this day off that we were going to do things a little different than has been done in the past. We were going to move the venue, we're going to change the catering, and he was excited about that. And I think what he was most excited about was we've cut down the roasters from 4 or 5 to just 3. So that warmed his heart. But I told him, I said, you know, I want this to be a night of honoring you. So I'm going to read his obituary. And then I'm going to build him up, and then friends, or so-called friends of his, will tear him back down. A native of Nashville, Tennessee, Dr. Paul Stumb was named president of Cumberland University in August of 2015. He has served Cumberland University since 2003 when he became an adjunct professor, a capacity in which he served for 2 years before becoming dean of the Labrie School of Science, Technology, and Business. During his tenure as president, Cumberland has seen record enrollment growth, record fundraising, and developed a strategic plan that respects the university's rich 180-year history while positioning it for an academic distinction and excellence in the current landscape of higher education. Dr. Stumb holds a BS from Auburn University, an MS from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, a master's in education from Cumberland, and he earned his PhD in engineering at the University of Tennessee. He is a graduate of the Navy War College Strategy and Policy course, and he retired from the U.S. Navy Reserves with a rank of commander. He has served as an adjunct professor for the National Security Agency, Georgia State University, Shorter College, and Middle Tennessee State University. Prior to joining Cumberland, Dr. Stumb enjoyed a successful career in the business sector, serving as a director of marketing and business development, and later as general manager of American Corrugated, a division of Georgia Pacific Corporation, and vice president of operations, executive committee member, and owner of the One Coast Network, Inc., a gift and home decor marketing firm in Atlanta, Georgia. He was also regional vice president of Curtis 1000, Inc., a commercial printing subsidiary of American Business Products in Atlanta. Let me get a drink of water. Earlier employment included assignments with Lockheed Martin Energy Systems, Inc., Union Carbide Corporation in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Dr. Stumb is a member of a number of professional and honor societies and deeply involved in civic and professional activities. He is widely engaged in the Middle Tennessee community and provides consultation services for local and regional manufacturers, municipalities, and nonprofit entities. He is the past board chair of Leadership Middle Tennessee and a member of Leadership Tennessee Class of 2018. He sits on the boards of Vanderbilt Wilson County Hospital, Accreditation Council for Business Schools and Programs, Cumberland Region Tomorrow, Cumberland River Compact, Tennessee Independent Colleges and Universities Association, the Higher Education Research and Development Institute, and the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee. He is also a member of the Lebanon Noon Rotary Club, which we will not hold that against you tonight, Lebanon Airport Commission, in the Lebanon First United Methodist Church Council and the Sigma Chi Fraternity Alumni Association. Dr. Stumb is married to his wife, Dr. Christy Stumb, a Cumberland University alum and former faculty member who now owns and operates Stumb Healthcare Professionals, a primary care clinic in Carthage, Tennessee. Together, they have 4 grown children and 7 grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, you see why we've chose Dr. Stumb to honor this evening. I'm honored to share the stage with such a fine group of prestigious people and Sam Hatcher. We have a great lineup of what I term as roasters. First up is a gentleman that I haven't had the pleasure of getting to know very well, but I feel like after hearing what he has in store for Dr. Stumb, he and I will be getting along just great. Let's make welcome Ryan Bennett, lead pastor of the First United Methodist Church. Brother Ryan.
Good evening. Good evening. You can help me out a little bit here tonight. So, my name is Ryan. I'm one of the pastors at First United Methodist Church. I am Paul and Christy's pastor, and it is such an honor to be here. First, I want to thank the Kiwanis. I'm honored to be able to support your work in our community and supporting all of these valuable services that our community provides. And I'm thankful to be able to be up here to honor my friend, Dr. Stumb. It is truly an honor to be here. And truly, I don't think I can roast him. No, but I do want us to learn from him. And so I've picked some things that I think that all of us here tonight can learn from Paul. As you know, Paul is an amazing public speaker. I think almost all of us in this room have heard Paul speak before. He's speaking at all kinds of events, and he is an amazing public speaker. I mean, he can command a room when he's in it. We all know that. And so he's one of the best I've ever heard. And so if you want to get out a pen and paper and take notes, I'm going to walk you through step by step how to be a public speaker like Paul Stumb. Step 1, tell a bad joke. Something like, oh, I don't know, a priest and a nun go on a mission trip. And they find themselves lost at night, needing a place to stay, and they find a hostel. There's only one room to stay in the hostel, but seeing as there's 2 beds in it, the priest and the nun feel like it would be okay, and so they take it, and as they get to bed, they get settled in, and all of a sudden the nun says, Father, it's awful cold in here. To which the priest says, well, there's some blankets over there, I'll go get you one. So he goes up and gets the blanket and he puts it on her and says, how's that, sister? Does that all better? Oh, it's so much better, Father, thank you. And he gets back in bed and gets comfortable. A little bit later, the sister says, well, Father, I'm cold again. Can you help me? And so he gets up and he goes over and he gets the blanket and he puts it down on her and gets her covered up again and says, is that better? Oh, yeah, it's better. Third time, a little bit later, she says, Father, I'm cold again. Can you help me? To which the father says, sister, we have a problem. Either I can get up again and get you another blanket, or for this one night, we can act like a married couple. To which the sister says, ooh, that sounds good, Father. I think I'd like that. To which the priest responds, Paul, would you like to do the honor?
Get up and get your own darn blanket.
Oh, you heard that joke. You heard that joke. Okay, sorry. I didn't mean to say one that you knew. I'm sorry. Step 2. After you say the bad joke, say, my wife says there's nothing like a good joke.
To start a meeting.
And
that was clearly nothing like a good joke.
that was nothing like a good joke. Step 3. Now y'all taking good notes, right? Give an obscure fact that no one knows. So for instance, just off the top of my head, does anyone know what the most misquoted mathematical theorem in movie history is? Anyone? You do. Oh, you've heard it from Paul? Paul, what is the most misquoted movie theorem, or math theorem in movie history? And how is the Pythagorean theorem misquoted?
It's misquoted in The Wizard of Oz.
In The Wizard of Oz, by who?
By the Scarecrow.
Oh, okay. Sounds like somebody, I may have heard that before from Paul. And then step 4, and this is important. You need to give a moving quote that stirs people to action. For instance, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Have you heard that quote before? So if we here tonight can master these 4 simple steps, then we too can be a master public speaker like Dr. Paul Stumb. Second, I want to offer you some traits that I am uniquely qualified to speak to as Paul's pastor. Some things that you and I should want to emulate in our life that Paul emulates in his. For instance, I want to speak about Paul's humility. If you don't believe that Paul is a very humble man, just ask him. He'll be glad to go into great depth about his humility. He'll probably even pull up several obscure quotes, things that he could recall from the top of his head, like, well, I believe it was Gandhi that said it is unwise to be too sure of one's own wisdom. It's healthy to be reminded that the strongest might weaken and the wisest might err. However, I'm also reminded that the famous journalist Mignon McLaughlin says that the proud man can learn humility, but he will be proud of it. Paul is also a giving man, and as his pastor, I'm confident in sharing that Paul is a very giving man. Once on the racquetball court, Paul hit one as hard as he could right into my left cheek. The other cheek. The problem was that later that week I had to have a colonoscopy, and when I rolled up on my side, the doctors and those in the room were asking me what in the world was going on, and I had to explain to them that President Paul Stumb had lit into me on the racquetball. Now, I was glad to learn not too long ago that I'm not the only one on the receiving end of Paul's gifts. I saw Jeff Peterson. Jeff, I saw you in here. Where are you? There you are. I saw Jeff Peterson one afternoon, and we were together, and he looked dazed, and I said, Jeff, are you all right? You look like something's happened to you. And he said, well, I just finished playing racquetball with Paul Stumb, and he hit me in the head with his racket. And he gave me a concussion. And when I asked him to speak to that, and to Paul, he said, Paul's a man of vision. In racquetball, Paul has such vision that he can see right through his opponents to the wall, and he hits the ball with such force that he expects the ball to pass right through them as well. Now, I know Jeff can attest to that. I can attest to that. Rusty, you can attest to that. I'm sure there's several in here who can attest to that fact as well. There's plenty of you around here. Oh, when you thought I was talking about Paul being a giving man, you thought I was talking about his generosity? Oh, no. That's not the case at all. In fact, his wife Christy tells me that Paul is a cheapskate. He pinches pennies on everything, which is why they're always sitting in the dark in their house, and that every bathroom has only single-ply toilet paper in it. But there are certain areas in Paul's life where he is extravagant. And I think we all know what area that is. It's with his toys. Paul has some toys that he loves, and we know that his favorite toy is probably his plane. But his toys have evolved over time. W.P. Bone told us, those of us who were roasting Paul, well, he told us a lot. Most of which I can't repeat here, but I do need to see you in my office in the morning. But he said at the time before Paul was married, when he had these toys around, and he decided he was going to buy him a dirt bike. And he, being the engineer, math nerd that he is, had it all measured out, and he owned a pickup truck at the time, and he went to go buy that dirt bike and load it up into his pickup truck and take it home with him, but he mismeasured. Is that true? And the dirt bike would fit in his truck? Okay, I thought, aren't you like a math guy? Okay. And we know that Paul loves his cars. In fact, we had people coming out of the woodwork, those of us who were roasting Paul, to give us stories. I had people offer me money tonight to be able to have some of my time. And what we found is that everybody has a Paul Stumb story. And so we had people calling us who were friends of his from high school, who were talking about a time when he got his car, and he tried to decorate it to look like a police car, full on with lights and sirens, and his intent was to pull over his high school girlfriend. The problem is that the night that he tried to enact this plan, that his high school girlfriend's dad was driving the car, and he ended up pulling him over by mistake. And we also learned that at one time he rigged his car to where he could shoot bottle rockets from his car while he was driving and would ride through town trying to shoot bottle rockets at people. You don't know what I'm talking about on that? And besides loving his car as toys, we know that Paul is known as being an aggressive driver. And that concerns W.P. Bone because Mr. Bone provides Paul with the vehicle to drive as the president of Cumberland, and he's concerned that it could cause problems. But W.P., I believe you have a solution to this problem of Paul being an aggressive driver, right? Can you enlighten us on this, please?
Well, I'll tell you right now, we have an organization that has its motto, reproving one child at a time, and so we're here to reprove this child, and he has caused us great heartache, and we're here to correct this. So we're going to, the aggressive driver taking our valuable cars and giving such a speed demon and a bad driver on top of that, and cutting in on people that we get complaints thinking our employees are heathens. And it's not our employees, I work for him. So Mitchell has come with a cure for his bad driving, and I think present you with your new demo. Play with the Ford sticker for Ronnie out there.
Possibly the best story I heard, though, about Paul and his toys was a time before Paul was the president of the university, but was a professor at Cumberland. And there was this new toy on the market that he just had to have. It was called a Segway. And Paul bought a Segway, and he drove it all over campus, and I understand he drove it right into the classrooms, right toward the front where he would teach, and he just got to be known as the Segway guy, driving it all over campus. That was until one day when Paul decided he needed to drive that Segway into the library. And an irate librarian kicked him out of the library pretty quick. Is she still working for Cumberland? I didn't think so. Another quality that I want us to look at with Paul is Paul's a very reserved man. He doesn't tell you what he thinks very often, right? He just kind of keeps it to himself. I remember right after I moved to Lebanon and had just started as the pastor of the church, we had a great morning of worship and then a meeting afterwards in which Paul was the chair of that meeting, our church council. And as we got in there, that morning we'd had an amazing time of worship, and it was led by our church handbell choir. And they had spent weeks rehearsing the anthem, and it played, and it was beautiful, and everybody was so excited. We get into the meetings, and Paul starts the meeting, and he just started off by saying, you know, I just want to tell you that I wouldn't mind if our handbell choir went away. I hate the handbell choir. I don't think we have to worry about them naming the handbell choir after him. But you know, as I was hearing all these stories about Paul, I began to wonder. I said, you know, what is it that Christy sees in him? I said, you know, Christy, I went to her and I said, you know, I'm just hearing one side of the story. I'm hearing all the people that have funny stories about him, but you obviously were drawn to him. And I said, can you give me a counterpoint to all of these stories and all of these things about him? And she said, well, yeah. She said, I grant it, Ryan, I have to put up with a lot being married to Paul Stumb. But I'll tell you what, when we first met, I was so drawn to his long, golden, flowing hair. Sorry, Christy. You're stuck. I want to tell you one final story and then I'm done. I learned recently that Paul has a nickname at First United Methodist Church. Because you see, the little old ladies at the church think Paul is hot stuff. I mean, they do. They love it. And they started a text group, and whenever one of them runs into him, they'll text the group and say, hey, Paul's at Sammy B's today. Or, hey, Paul's, you know, I ran into Paul at Cumberland today. Or I'm sitting with Paul on the same pew at church today. And they'll just text back and forth, and they go, oh, Paul's so hard. But one day, one of them was sitting at a table with Paul at a church luncheon, and she was kind of trying to discreetly text her group, and she said, you know, I'm sitting at the table with Paul today, but it auto-corrected, and instead of saying I'm sitting at the table with Paul, it said I'm sitting at the table with pasta. And so from now on, I mean, your code word around the church in this little away group is pasta. And so they'll say, hey, pasta's here. Pasta came in the room. The ladies at my church love some pasta. I'm going to sit down, but I want to say with all seriousness that I'm honored that Paul would ask me to roast him. I do know Paul, with all honesty, to be one of the best leaders I know. Someone that I respect greatly, someone that I love to have breakfast with or have coffee with, and every time, he may not realize it, but I always have a question or two to ask him, something to pick his brain, something to learn from him and grow from him, because I just think he is a tremendous leader, one of the best that I've ever been around, one of the best that we have in Lebanon. So I'm so thankful for that. In his book, From Good to Great, Jim Collins talks about the highest level of leadership. He calls it a level 5 leader. And he says this, level 5 leaders display a powerful mixture of personal humility and indomitable will. They're incredibly ambitious, but their ambition is first and foremost for the cause, for the organization and its purpose, not themselves. While level 5 leaders can come in many personality packages, they're often self-effacing, quiet, reserved, and even shy. Every good to great transition in our research began with a level 5 leader who motivated the enterprise more with inspired standards than inspiring personality. In my mind, Dr. Paul Stumb is a level 5 leader. And if you don't believe me, just ask him.
Thank you, Ryan. Good job. Before we introduce our next roaster, I'd like to recognize our decorating team from Kiwanis. Gail Hibbert, where you at, Gail? She put together a great team, and Rusty Richardson from Cumberland gave us a lot of memorabilia from Paul, and it's displayed at your table. A lot of things that he likes, some things he may not like. But thank you for all the decorating. It's a great job. And very, very special. Our next roaster is no stranger to Kiwanis. Susie James has been a Kiwanian since her mid-20s. So she's been in the Kiwanis Club 10 or 12 years now. So she's a dear friend, and she has worked very hard putting this thing together. So I give you my friend, Susie James.
Oh, Chick, I needed my song. Kiwanis, and I'd also like to thank you for being here tonight. I was honored and overwhelmed when Paul asked me to be one of his roasters. Honored because we have spent so much time together. I've come to think of him as a much older brother. Overwhelmed because I have so much information. I too, like Ryan and Sammy, have had phone calls, texts, emails from several of your so-called friends trying to share stories, but I don't need any stories. I've been gathering my own stories for 15 years. There's no way for me to cover them in about 5 minutes tonight, but let me say first, everything I'm sharing is true. There is no reason to make up anything. No reason to make it up. When I have volumes to pull from. So for tonight, I chose volume number 3. John, if you could give me my notes here. Here's just my number 3 volume of my Paul's Tongue info. I know Paul's favorite song, but I won't share that here tonight. I know his favorite joke, and I certainly won't be sharing it. You are both Brian. I made fun of him for years. One of the smartest, most educated people I know. But the man only knew 4 jokes. And Ryan just told one of them. How many times have I heard that? Recently, I did notice he has increased his library. Now he can pull from, is it 7 or 8, Paul? I'm being generous. I know his favorite drink. And I certainly know his favorite meal. It's the one he's eating at that moment. The man loves to eat. He's a delight to feed a home-cooked meal. And I used to be very flattered. Oh, Susie, this is the best meatloaf I've ever had. Oh, Ed, this is the best grilled steak I've ever had. Then we go over to somebody else's house and he gives them the same compliment. Oh, Teresa, did you make this chicken? It's the best I've ever had.
You tell them, sister. You tell them.
Christy, these are the best potatoes I've ever eaten in my life. Let me just warn you, once you let him into your house, he makes himself very comfortable from that point forward. We all know Paul and Christy are quite competitive. Everyone likes to win, but Paul takes it more seriously than others. If you ask Paul if he won his racquetball match this morning, well, Paul, did you win this morning?
I played, didn't I?
Yeah, I played. He also likes to be the first to arrive, or at least that's how he drives, WP. Usually, I'm in the back seat with my eyes closed, trying not to watch how close we are to the car in front of us. But I've heard there was a time that you were driving like that a long time ago in Knoxville, and you ran a red light. After a lengthy attempt to talk your way out of the ticket, the judge sentenced you to 8 hours of community service at the zoo. I understand you spent the entire day with the elephants, shoveling poop. That's a lot of poop. Did you win that day, Paul? In all seriousness, we've spent a lot of time traveling with Paul and Christy. And you get to know people really well when you travel with them. I know he doesn't like to dance, which you mentioned tonight already. But he will, a little, with some encouragement from me and Christy. He's not going to stay up late, no matter where we are or what nightlife there is. He's not going to stay up. That's what happens when you get older. A few weeks ago, and I am serious, on a Saturday evening, about 5:30, he emailed me. I guess you were getting ready for bed. And he shared this long list of insight to his life. I'll only tell you about 3 of them, but the first one read, at age 60 might be the new 40, but 9 p.m. is the new midnight. It's the start of a brand new day, and I'm off like a herd of turtles. The older I get, the later it gets, or the earlier it gets late. And Ryan, you know, we do travel around, and people are always complimenting Christy on her style and her beauty, but I've never heard anybody say Brother Paul was handsome, that Pasta's going to bring on a whole new meaning. If you know me, you've heard me say about myself, hair and weight are subject to change. And so I will not make fun of Paul for his lack of hair tonight. Because he told me not long ago he would not make fun of the color of the change of mine. He admires anyone with hair. So just a couple of brief stories about some trips. In the spring of 2016, shortly after Ed's knee replacement, we went to New York, along with another couple. The 6 of us had a great time. Broadway shows, dinner, shopping, sightseeing, all on foot or the subway because Paul was too cheap to even split a cab or an Uber. Ed was a trooper. He tried not to complain up and down those steps of the subway station with that new knee. It seemed to be we could never find the correct subway stop the first time. We'd stand there for the longest time while Paul and the other guy, who's not here tonight, looked and looked at the maps. Now, my Ed has an excellent sense of direction, but his knee was swollen and he was uncomfortable, and he felt sure these 2 educated guys could figure this out. Because the 3 women, we just kept talking, and people are boarding the subway and off and on, coming and going. They knew where they were going, everybody else did. It was Christy that finally walked over there to their aid. You guys are not even looking at the subway maps. They're over there. You are looking at the bus routes. This is the man that's leading Cumberland University. About 3 years ago, the 4 of us were planning a trip to Dallas. Paul called me. Susie, quick. I need to know exactly how much you weigh right now. Well, now that's a phone call every woman wants to get from a friend, a male friend, and especially one that's married to her. So anyway, I told him. He had no response. He didn't say anything. He just hung up. He did, yeah. He was calculating exactly how much weight he could carry in their personal airplane. So they flew privately, and Ed and I flew American Airlines. I weighed too much. Oh, Ed, yeah, right. So last year we went to the Greenbrier, America's resort. So much history, so many activities. Let me throw this in. Paul and Christy flew. He piloted their private airplane. But the night before they left, he made poor Christy drag all of their luggage over to our house so that we could drive it in the pickup truck. I'm not making this up. It was fabulous. It was a fabulous trip. One afternoon, Ed and I did an excursion. We rode ATVs. We went mudding all over the property, and it was pretty daring for us. Paul and Christy chose horseback riding. Our excursion began a few hours before theirs, so we finished first. We saw their group of about 8 people standing outside listening to the orientation. We waited, watching as they mounted their horses. And if you know me, I circled back around because I thought I'll take a picture or 2. And I did. There was Christy, dressed to kill, from her riding helmet and her fabulous boots. Perfect posture like a professional on that horse. Apparently, they questioned your skill level before assigning your horse. I'm not sure how to say this, but Paul lied. They figured it out pretty quickly because here he was, now riding what looked like a little circus pony. One of those horses in front of Walmart you put the coin in. His feet were nearly dragging the ground, and he was the only one in the group with a guide holding the reins. Out of respect for you, I deleted those photos. But there's just some things your eyes cannot unsee. So that evening, Christy shared in confidence that when you got back to your room, the two of you called your parents, Dear and Pat. And if you are still blessed to have parents, you should call your parents. You go out of town, they want to know what you're into. So when your sweet mother heard that you had been on a horse, she must have said something to the effect of, the last time son Paul was on a horse, you dropped the reins and it took you right back to the barn. Not your talent. Most of you know Paul as this well-dressed man you see before you today. That's not always the case either. Christy and I have been working on him for years. This is something his family knows better than me, but you know that purple polo? You know Marianne, it's older than you. Yeah, or that one pair of old man faded jeans. That denim shirt with the faded shoulders. Yeah, we had to have an intervention because we were not going out of town with him dressed like that any longer. We even had to ask him not to wear it the last time we walked to Los Compadres. About 8 years ago, we visited the Grand Canyon. We stayed at the El Tovar Lodge on the South Rim, and again, it was just lovely. Before we left the next morning, we found a great little clothing shop, and the men went over to the belt section. And we heard him laughing, and we walked over and said, Paul, are you having any luck? And Paul said, well, I found this one belt. He had it on. He said, but I can't find a price. It said, Paul, you are wearing my belt. I took it off and hung it up to try another one. They left that day with brand new matching belts. In closing, as you've all already heard tonight, Paul, you do wear many hats. President Stumb, Dr. Stumb, Commander Stumb, son Paul, father, husband, Papo. I can go on and on with the titles, but you are kind and generous, and you have a heart of gold. It's obvious that the Board of Trusts made the right decision when they chose you, and I'm so thankful that you chose me to be your friend.
Thank you, Susie. It had to be true, because if you saw Christy, she's in tears up here laughing, and it's only true if it's funny, that funny. So our next presenter or roaster is a good friend of mine, and Sam and I and Paul played golf in the Chamber Golf Tournament last year, and that's a team event. But it's not when these two are playing together or riding together. They are ugly. You both cut each other down. We're trying to score and win, and it's all about, can you believe he hit that shot? It's awful. So I'm excited to hear what Sam has to say. Sam and I go way back. He is a dear friend of mine. I'm proud to call him a very, very close friend. He's sitting to my right, stage left, way left, way left, Sam Hatcher.
Well, I can think of a few things. I want to say first about John's introduction. Several months ago, maybe even a year or two ago, John goes to Berea Church of Christ, and they were looking for a guest speaker. So I said, well, I got a pretty good friend, Steve Flatt, excellent preacher. I know several in the audience know Steve Flatt. And I said, let me see if I can get Flatt to come and be a speaker at Berea. John said, well, that'd be great. So Flatt comes to speak at Berea Church of Christ.
And John stands up to introduce Steve Flatt in the pulpit, and he says almost the same thing then that he said about me. He said, you know, I've known Sam Hatcher for a long time. For many years I've known Sam Hatcher. He is such a good, close, personal friend of mine. And I just want to say that, and I appreciate him arranging for Dr. Flatt to be here this morning to speak to our congregation. So without hesitation, Steve Flatt stands up, comes to the microphone, and he said, before I start my lesson, I'd like to say one thing. I believe that's the first time I've ever heard anybody in public say that Sam Hatcher was a friend of theirs. Twice. I thought you might learn that. The other thing I want to say before we start talking about Dr. Stumb, I learned several years ago not to be the last on the program to speak. That's always a bad position. And I know Dr. Bone is here tonight. I saw him earlier, and I'm sure there are other members of the Bone family that are here. And several years ago, the late Gordon Bone and I were asked to go to Hartsville and to speak about the creation of the charter of the Hartsville Rotary Club, because Gordon Bone and I participated in chartering that Rotary Club. At that time, it was the 25th anniversary of the Hartsville Rotary Club. So Gordon agreed to come and pick me up, and we're riding over to Hartsville. I'm nervous as I can be because, frankly, I didn't remember a thing about the chartering of the Hartsville Rotary Club. We were there, but I didn't remember a thing about it. And Gordon says on the way over there, he says, I tell you what, if it's all right with you, I'll go first, and then you can just back me up. I said, Gordon, I think that's a good plan. That's a really good plan. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, Gordon's going to go up and tell the history of the Hartsville Rotary Club. All I have to do is stand up and say, Gordon, you've done a great job. I don't know a whole lot I can add to that. Thank you very much, and I'll sit down. So Gordon takes they introduce me and they introduce Gordon, and Gordon says, well, I'll go first. And everybody applauds. Gordon stands up and everybody applauds. And he says, I'm really glad to be here today, and I know Sam is too. And with that being said, I'm going to ask Sam to stand up and tell you about the history of the club. True story. So I learned a valuable lesson that it's not always good to go last when you're speaking. I want to take just a second, excuse me, to recognize Bob and Pam Black. Is this not a great... My family has had some history here. My grandfather and my father were involved with the Capitol Theater, and I know they'd be proud. Bob, I know you're here, you and Pam are here, and I know they'd be so proud to see this tonight and see this theater being used like this. And before I make a few remarks about Paul, I want to say, Paul, I want to say this where you'll understand it. Susie has said some things, and Ryan has said some things. But I want to tell you, I'd be really careful as you come back and rebut what they've said. Susie's got the airways in Wilson County. She can say what she wants to, when she wants to, and as much as she wants to. I'd be careful about that. And Ryan, your pastor, I got to believe there'd be a special place in hell for you if you stand there. And I want to say to the audience, this is going to be a lot like and I see some judges here and attorneys, and this is going to be sort of like a jury trial. We got to keep that in mind, because I want to tell you, the defendant, he's going to stand up and say, well, what they said, that's not really the truth. The truth of the matter, there's been a little truth said here tonight. These are all been fabricated remarks.
Say it, brother.
Yeah, you know, he's going to say things like, I guarantee you he'll say that. He'll say that he knows somebody that buys gas $20 at a time. Now we know there's not a person in this room that does that. These are the kind of things that he will fabricate, and you watch for that as the night progresses. Dr. and Miss Stumb, thank you all for being here tonight. I want to say, I really can't think of a bad thing to say about your son. I do want to take this opportunity, in all seriousness, I do want to take this opportunity to represent the one person that has led Cumberland University to new heights. Some of that has been said tonight. I think, Ryan, you touched on that. Susie, you did as well. And the nursing school is one of the finest nursing schools in the state. The enrollment growth has set new records. The school is anchored in a position of financial stability, and so many other positive things have happened at Cumberland. And for that, I would ask this audience to recognize Christy Stumb. I was really afraid somebody was going to take this away from me. And Ryan got close. But is this still about him saying these quotes? Does that just not get on your nerves? And the truth of the matter is, how do we know what the quotes are, if they're even true? For instance, I heard him say one time, and I want to read this. I heard him say one time, one of my most favorite quotes comes from Aristotle in 390 BC, when this profound philosopher said, "Small men come in big glasses." You know, I won't say what's on my mind about that, but I've always wanted to raise my hand and say, you know, that's BS. I'd clean that up and say it's horse hockey. My wife wouldn't let me actually say the BS, so that really bothers me from time to time. One of the most embarrassing things that has ever happened to me and Teresa, I will say. Last May, we were in Birmingham, Alabama, with Christy and Paul. And we were there to honor Cliff Ellis, Cumberland's basketball coach. He was being inducted into the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame for his coaching career at Auburn. He was an SEC Coach of the Year at Auburn, and I believe took Auburn to the Sweet 16 while he was there. So we're standing in line at a reception before the main event starts. And I think I'm sort of in line before everyone else there standing behind me. That would be Paul and Christy and Teresa. And this attractive lady standing in front of me, as we're waiting to get a glass of wine, this lady says, we started having a conversation, and she says, "Well, I'm here to support Cliff Ellis." And I said, "Well, we're here to support Cliff Ellis too." I said, "He's been a good friend of ours. We're from Lebanon. You know, I tell the Cumberland story." And she said, "Well, I'm here because Pat Dye and I, she was Pat Dye's widowed partner. They weren't married, but a widowed partner for 18 years. And she said, Pat and I were such good friends with Cliff and Carolyn Ellis, and said, I wanted to come and support Cliff because of that." And I'm thinking, this woman lived with the legendary Pat Dye for 18 years. I mean, I'm really impressed with that, and I know all you all know about Pat Dye. Paul is standing behind me, and I say to Paul, I said, this lady doesn't, and she's standing with us. I said, does this lady not look a lot like one of our U.S. senators from Tennessee? And I'm thinking, Marsha Blackburn. And Paul says, oh yeah, she sure does. She looks just like Bill Haggerty. This poor lady, I mean, she didn't know what to think. I've never been so embarrassed in my life. So we walk off. This is not the end of it. We walk off. And here's Carolyn Ellis, sort of in the front of the room. It was a large room, a lot of people there. And Carolyn Ellis is standing in the front of the room, and she said, by any chance, have you met Pat Dye's widow? And I said, yeah, we stood in line with her in the reception. And she said, do you know where she might be sitting? I said, yeah, she's sitting right over there. She said, well, let's walk over there together. So we walk over there, and the truth, I promise you the honest truth, Carolyn says, I think you've met Sam Hatcher. And she said, yeah, his friend thinks I look like somebody called Bill Haggerty, whoever that is. Good boy. Good boy. Probably still fun, but yeah. I'll tell you one of Paul's greatest attributes, and I think we all know this, is being able to look at an audience and to estimate the size. In October, we had an event on Cumberland campus to honor Cordell Hull, and I know probably several of you all were there for that. And there was a nice crowd of people. There were probably 250, 300 people there. And the next day, Paul calls me and he said, what did you think about the Cordell Hull event? I said, Paul, I think it's great. I said, I thought it's one of the best events Cumberland has had in years. I thought it was just outstanding. He said, I did too. He said, could you believe we got 4,000 people in the They've asked Paul, and I don't know if he'll share that tonight. He may when they've asked Paul if Donald Trump is reelected. They've asked him to come and estimate the crowd for the inauguration. I may have a little bit of trouble with this one. I've tried to. Y'all are going to have to bear with me on this. So you're going to Nashville, and where the 40 and I-40 and the I-24 split is there, and if you go to 24 in order to go down and then to get over to 440, I believe it is, to go out to West Nashville. Everybody know what I'm talking about on that, where you cut off of 24 to get on 440 to go to West Nashville or wherever out that way. Paul and I have had the occasion several times to do that. And if y'all remember, as you're on 24, that traffic starts backing up. That traffic on the right-hand lane starts backing. I see a lot of nods in the audience, and that traffic starts backing up some way back, almost back into I-40 in some mornings. Well, I'm not bragging, but I'm sort of a good guy. I get in the right-hand lane like everybody's supposed to do. Oh, not President Stumb, not President. I am the president. And boy, here he goes, barreling right up that left-hand lane just as fast as he can go. I said, Paul, you need to get over. You need to get over. Oh, I'll get over. We got plenty of time. We're 50 feet from where we need to turn off. And sure enough, he'll take this car that's provided by the Good Bone family that Wilson County Motors provides him a very nice car to drive. It's got big dealer tags on the back of it and a big sticker that says Wilson County Motor Company. And he pulls right in there, and all these people, they say, they give him a middle finger, their number one finger, and then they say things to him that I promise you Will Smith would not say. And you know what Paul says? Don't worry about that. They'll think it's W.P. Bone. the other thing. And I watched it tonight. I watched this tonight. This guy can have a meaningless conversation with anybody. We're all sitting up here sort of trying to get the deal started. You know, he's meandering around talking over here. Well, you know, that pretty outfit. Doesn't the floor look good in here tonight? I mean, a bunch of crap that nobody really cares about. We were at dinner together, I believe it was like 2 weeks ago, and the server came up to take her order, and she was a pleasant lady, 55 years old maybe, and you know, she was sort of tell us what the specials were or whatever, and there was a third person with us, and this person had to get up and take a phone call and had left the table. So Paul says, now what's your name? And she said, well, my name is Christy. I said, my wife's name's Christy. How do you spell your name? I spell my name K-R-I-S-T-I-A. Oh, that's not the way my wife spells her name. My wife spells her name C-R-I-S-T-Y. So, where do you live? Well, I live in Lebanon now. Where are you from? Well, I'm not from here. Well, where were you from originally? Well, I was from here originally, but I moved back to Ohio and then lived there for, you know, several years. Well, how many years did you live in Ohio? Here's a woman that we don't even know, I'm telling you. So will you ever go back to Ohio? Well, I don't know. I might go back there. I may go back there to visit for a while. I don't think I'll ever live in Ohio. Well, I wouldn't live in Ohio either. You know, Tennessee's a much nicer place to live than Ohio. Do you have children? Well, yes, I do have children. She said, I actually have grandchildren. He said, I have grandchildren. Our grandchildren are nice. Grandchildren are really nice. They're really fun. Yeah, they are. They are really nice. Finally, she said, sir, do you want to order? We ordered dinner. And one of our daughters, Caitlin, used to always say this, and I never have been able to apply that until this situation. And she always said, you know, that caused me to lose 20 good minutes of my life. This sort of wraps up my part of the program. I want to thank you for being here to support Paul. I think he's important to our community. I think he's really important to Cumberland University. And this is such a worthy event. And you know, when T.O. Cragwall mentioned Ukraine, you know, I don't know that we really appreciate what we have. That we can come here, enjoy ourselves, enjoy this community that we live in, and live in a great country that we do. And I think about those people in Ukraine every day, and I'm sure all of you do too. I guess now is the time for me to turn this over to John, who's going to turn this over to Paul, and beware, Paul will tell a lie.
Thank you, Sam. Their golf game's much like the banter with the waitress. Backswing and all, talking constantly. On your tables, there are envelopes that says Kiwanis Club. This is a fundraiser, okay? Believe it or not, we're here to raise some money for the children of our community. Proceeds from this event will go to the Lebanon Wilson County Library Board. Proceeds from this event will help fund Wilson County Books from Birth program. Proceeds tonight will help Wilson County CASA Lebanon Youth Baseball, the Christmas for All program. All the monies raised here through this event, through these $60 tickets and these table sponsors and these headline sponsors, Middle Tennessee Electric, we put that in our foundation account. That's on account with the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee. And we take the interest off that and we put it right back in this community. So if you feel led, this is before the final speech, and I said we'd get out of here about 8 o'clock, so Paul, you're on the clock. I mean, you talk all night. No, seriously. Paul, take all the time you want, because we're leaving at 8 here with us. If you feel led, bless us with the gift, and we've had a great time tonight. Great food, great venue, great people, and I give you the great Dr. Paul Stumb.
Well, I think I should begin with a quote. And I want to quote my great aunt, who appeared at an event like this one time. It was actually, I need my great aunt. She said this. It was she lived to be 103. Wasn't she 103 when she died? She was 103. And she stood up at I think it was her 102nd birthday party. On her 100th birthday party, she was a cheerleader in the 19-teens for Vanderbilt. And she stood up on her 100th birthday and did the dynamite cheer. I tried to teach her the Cumberland cheer, but she couldn't quite master that at age 100. But nevertheless, she stood up on her 102nd birthday and she held up a glass in the air and she said, "Fornication." And we all thought, oh my gosh, she's lost her mind. But she went on to say, "For an occasion like this, I think it's most appropriate that I refute these many lies that have been told." And that is, in fact, what I intend to do. I want to begin, though, with a brief story. This is, in fact, like everything I'm going to share with you, a true story. Christy and I, one of the things that we like to do most on when we can get the newspaper. Anybody here have trouble getting the Tennessean like we do? I can't get it delivered anymore. But we like to work the word scramble in the paper. And you know what I'm talking about, where you unscramble the letters to form real words, and then there's some of the letters in those words that are circled, and you use those circled letters to solve a little puzzle. They have usually a cartoon. And this one Sunday, the cartoon was of a guy standing behind a podium, just much like this. And the caption underneath said, "What an after-dinner speaker should talk about." And the answer was 5 minutes. So I will be brief, but I definitely have some reputation to make. I'm reminded of another story that I must feel compelled to tell. And this is a story about, John asked the elected officials to rise a minute ago. We honored them. We always honor them. We have some great elected officials in this community. But I was with another friend of mine whom I knew through the Navy. He was an elected official out west, and he told me one time about he had gone to an Indian reservation to make a talk. And he walked up to the podium. It was out in a field at this Indian reservation, and he began to talk to these Indians. He knew they could vote for him, and he talked about the things that he was going to do for them. And he started talking, just like our representatives and senators do. Mark Pody tells me all the time things he's going to do for me, and he does those things, and Clark Boyd does. But this guy stood up there and he started talking about how he was going to come and bring new roads into that Indian reservation. And while he was talking, a guy in the back pumped up his fist in celebration. He said, "Oh, Sakatol! Oh, Sakatol!" And then he went on and he was talking about how he was going to build schools on that reservation and how he was going to help them develop that reservation. And more people started saying, "Oh, Sakatol! Oh, Sakatol!" And then more and more people, as he began to make all these great promises, how he was going to improve the infrastructure on this Indian reservation. He was telling them, and they were just getting pumped up. "Oh, Sakatol! Oh, Sakatol! Oh, Sakatol!" They were all chanting it. And man, he was pumped up. He knew he had secured every one of their votes. And he finally finished his speech, and his chest was pumped up, and he walked down from that podium, and he was walking back to his car with the brave who had been kind of escorting him. And they were walking through this big field on the way back to the car. There weren't any cows in the field, but there was a bull that was over in the field. He was kind of worried about that bull. And then and as he was looking at that bull, kind of afraid, the brave said, "Oh, watch it, watch it. Don't step in that old sockatall." I want you to know that's exactly what we've heard here tonight. Old sockatall. A lot of it. I'm gonna briefly start in reverse order with Sammy Hatcher. Colonel Hatcher. Colonel Hatcher, he likes to be called Colonel. He's earned that. He's an 06 bird colonel, and he makes me salute him a lot of times. I was at a function with Sam recently. It was not this event, which I want to tell you, that event that we did go, in fact, to Birmingham with the Hatchers. It was a great event. And Sammy was the one that said to me, we were standing in line just as he described, but he said to me, he said, "Paul, don't you think that lady looks like," he couldn't remember Bill Haggerty's name. He said, "Don't you think she looks like Ed Haggerty, the mayor of Mount Juliet?" Ed Haggerty. I said, "No, she doesn't look like Ed Haggerty." He said, I mean the senator, I said, "No, she doesn't look like Bill Haggerty," and she overheard that, and that's when that's what really transpired that night. Sam, though, was at a function that we were attending, and he was really down. I could tell. He just wasn't himself. He was really depressed. He was not doing well. He was kind of sitting over in the corner by himself, and so I took it upon myself to go try to cheer him up. And I walked over to him. I said, "Sam, are you doing okay?" He just looked at me and said, "No, I'm really not. I'm kind of down." I said, "Well, do you need something to eat?" No, I don't want anything to eat." I said, "Sam, you're just not yourself." And I kind of started worrying. I said, "Sam, when was the last time that you and Teresa kind of you know what I'm talking about. I'm not gonna. But I said, "When was the last time?" And he said, "It was about 1957." I said, "Well, no wonder you're so in a bad mood. No wonder." And he said, "Well, no, it's only 2100 now." I will tell you that, talking about being tight, I can't believe somebody described me. Now, I do turn off the lights in the house, I admit that. I'm like, what's the point? My dad taught me that. And there's no point in having lights on in the house when you're not in the room. But I'm not, Sammy Hatcher's he is the squeakiest guy. I mean, you really need an oil can. He's like the Tin Man. He is so squeaky when he walks. And he is the guy, I promise you. He goes to the gas station. Teresa can verify this. He will not buy more than 4 or 5 gallons now at a time. He puts in 20, he lets that needle get all the way down to E. And then he puts in 4 gallons. And he runs it back down. And he does that just because he thinks maybe if he waits, then the price of gas is going to drop by a penny the next week. He is cheap. Sam has the nickname, and I really hadn't shared this with Pastor Ryan, but he has the nickname The Exorcist. The Exorcist. Because whenever Sam comes over to your house, when he leaves, there are no spirits left. He's Church of Christ, so I think he used to sing in the Church of Christ choir. Now, my good friend Susie, I need to tell you about Susie. Susie and Eddie and Christy and I go back a long time, and we have indeed traveled to a lot of places. And that horse story, though, has been a little misrepresented. I want you to know that. I was actually on the big stallion. I mean, this thing was massive. And I think the lady recognized that I could handle that big animal. But she didn't want anybody else to be concerned about their ability, so that's why she kind of helped me a little bit by holding my reins. The other story, though, about you. I did, in fact, go when we went to the what's the name of that ranch? Lane Guest Ranch. Yeah, we went to the Lane Guest Ranch years ago, and they said we went on a little horseback ride, and I was asked the question. They said, "Do you want to lope?" Well, I have to admit I didn't know what loping was, and so I said, yeah, I want to lope. So they said, okay, we're just walking on these horses, just having a nice leisure. Well, when we started loping, I learned quickly that was a euphemism for gallop. So it took off. I let go of the reins, was holding on to that horn all the way back to the barn. That is a true story. Susie, I got to tell you, Susie is the best, except for her mom, the best hostess you'll ever meet. I mean, she really is. She's magnificent. And all of her food is really good, by the way. She's a great cook. But her house is always pristine. And I noticed one time in her house, she has, if you go in Susie's house, she has this blue ribbon up on the wall, hanging on the wall, this blue ribbon. And I inquired about that blue ribbon one time. I said, Susie, where did you get this? She said, well, it came from the fair. I won the blue ribbon for best table setting. They have this competition at the fair. Y'all aware of that? Anybody competed in that? So Coleman, you've competed in that? I see Coleman shaking. He's aware of it. He hasn't competed. But the blue ribbon, she said, hey, it was first place blue ribbon for the table decorations that Susie purportedly won at the county fair. And I was very proud of my friend Susie until I later discovered that she really is really not sure that she won because she was the last one there to clean up, after this judge was all done. And the blue ribbon had kind of blown down underneath where her table was, and she just picked it up and kind of cleaned it. But she has it on proud display in her house. And the other thing I noticed, though, is that when we went to Susie's house recently, not too long ago for dinner, we were going over there. Christy and I got there a little earlier. Sammy and Teresa were coming over to have dinner with us, and Susie had one of Sammy's paintings up on the wall. It was, Sam's a multi-talented guy. He paints. He's an artist, and he had this Santa Claus painting up on the wall, right beside the blue ribbon. And I said, Susie, that's really nice. I've never noticed that before. She said, oh, yeah, I have it up there all the time. I said, oh, okay. Well, Sammy and Teresa came. We had a very nice dinner. And the next week, we went back over to Susie and Eddie's to have dinner or lunch or something, and I noticed that painting wasn't there. And then we went back over about a month later, and it was back up when Sammy and Teresa were coming over. It's kind of like those salt and pepper shakers that your in-laws give you. You only get them out when they're coming over. That's where Sammy's painting is. Only when he's coming over. Now, Ryan Bennett, I want you to know, he's my pastor, my spiritual leader, and I'm interested in the next 2 weeks' scripture lessons. I get to do a preview. As chair of the church council, I get to hear a preview of the sermon sometimes. And I saw the scripture for the next 2 weeks. It's Proverbs 12:22, which says, "Lying lips are detestable to the Lord, but those who deal faithfully are His delight." And number 2, Psalms 122. That's also in the scripture for next week, I think. It says, "Deliver my soul, O Lord, from lying lips and a deceitful tongue." So I'm just wondering how Ryan's going to talk about that after tonight. Ryan talks about, he shares a lot of personal stories in his sermons, and he is, I will say, he is one of the best preachers. If y'all haven't come to listen to Ryan Bennett preach, you need to come. He's outstanding. But when he talks about personal stories, and he told a story a while back about how he had built this big bonfire. He used to be a youth minister before he became a senior minister. He built this big bonfire, and he didn't have anything that was kind of, the wood was wet or something. I don't remember the details. I don't really listen a lot of times when you're talking. But he said he found some kind of kerosene or gasoline or something in the garage. Coleman fuel, that's what it was, Coleman fuel. He thought, well, Coleman fuel, it's, probably need a lot of that to get this fire started. So he poured it all over that firewood and lit it up, and man, it lit him up. He said the flames came out, the fire came out. He said it burned him, it scorched him. And I was just wondering, maybe as a result of that injury, that serious injury, that he may have lost some of his memory. Because clearly some of those stories you told tonight were just not true. And I also think that maybe it was a sign from God of what might be in the future for those who misrepresent the truth. Old Sakatol. I do want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. I want to thank in particular my family. I'm blessed with a wonderful family. John gave me that great introduction. I think the only thing he left out of my introduction was that you forgot to tell him I won the 7th grade spelling bee. But you cut it out. Christy said to me tonight, she said, Paul, now if anybody makes fun of your bald head, I'm going to be your Will Smith. My mom, I've been watching her tonight. I was thankful that nobody told any stories that made her do what she did at my brother's rehearsal dinner, which was somewhat similar to this, where I'm not exaggerating, my mother at the dinner took one of the cloth napkins off the table and put it over her head. And put her head down because she was so embarrassed. She thankfully did not have to do that tonight. But I'm grateful for my mom and dad. Mom is 87 years old. My dad will be 88 next month. And they are incredible. My children, our children are here. My awesome wife is here. I want to thank my Cumberland family and my church family who are here. Appreciate all of you all coming out. Some of my racquetball buddies who, by the way, I don't recall ever hitting any of them. I just recall getting it. Now, Jeff Peterson's face did get in the way of my racket. That was not my fault, Jeff. I want to thank John Bryan and Veronica Anderson. Thank you all both for putting this on and hosting this, and all the Kiwanis Club. I particularly want to thank my 3 roasters who truly are dear friends of mine, all 3 of them, and I'm grateful to them and their friendship. But I want to thank all of you for coming out to raise money for a really good cause tonight. So I want to finish with another toast. I started with a toast, and I want to finish with a toast. And this is a toast my dad taught me. And it goes like this. It says, may those who love us. And for those who don't, may God turn their hearts. And if he cannot turn their hearts, may he turn their ankles so we might know them by their limping. Thank you all.
Paul, that standing ovation was mainly because they said, please stand. I'm just back here, so you didn't see that. Thank you for attending tonight. We've been greatly blessed by such a great turnout, great sponsorships. Thanks to all the Kiwanians that are here tonight, your families that have supported this event. It's just been a great night. And we're just 7 minutes over 8 o'clock. Where can you go get a dinner and a show and get out by 10 after 8? Not many places. Leadership, Middle Tennessee. If you are a part of that group, come down, come on stage after we'll dismiss, and we're going to get a picture with Paul, but they'd like to do that. So if you don't mind, you can make your way down now. Thank you, good night, and may God bless. Thank you.